I sold drugs for a lot of years.
Why'd you sell drugs?
Uh, Money is really good, and you're your own boss. And I like working for myself, and it's like being a rock star. If you get up there high enough, it's like you got rock stars and politicians and televangelists. Well, drug dealer gets his own following. In my early 20s, I started selling speed, and that's what I've continued doing all my life.
Now, meth was really bad in those times, in the Ozarks. Did you feel bad at all about helping to spread it?
No, man, you guys got this crap out here they call meth, but it's not even not even close. It's battery acid and or strips of batteries and just all kinds of weird shit, and it's nothing like meth, like California, where and yeah, no, I didn't feel bad. It was already here, like you said.
Yeah. How did the trouble with you and Toddy start?
Well, she wanted me to hook her up with some, first time she wanted to buy a couple pounds or whatever. I didn't want to do it, I told her for a long time, I don't want, I don't. But after a while, I said, okay, but here's the deal. I'll hook you up with a guy in California, and you buy me a nice riding lawnmower, because I had a big lawn and the pasture, and she said, yeah, okay, fine, yeah. And so I hooked her up with a guy, and that was the last I heard of her. And I called her maybe 3 times after that, and I knew what was up,
So that morning you got drunk. What were you thinking?
I don't know. I woke up and there was that bottle of booze by the bed, and I just started drinking it. And a couple hours later, this girl came over, and I said, "Let's take a ride." And we went over there, and
What were you thinking, though?
I'd just gotten fed up with being pissed, it's like I turned 50 years old and she decided I was a punk, and that wasn't happening.
Did you ever see the big picture and think maybe taking someone's life wasn't worth this object?
In hindsight, yeah, but then I don't know. Maybe that's, like I said, I stayed mad for a year and a half and was only, I'd start to lose it when I got drunk, and that time I did.
No. Did you ever stop at any moment and think that this is a bad idea while you're driving over?
Apparently not.
I mean, what was going through your head during the drive?
I have no idea. I don't even remember getting there.
Is that true?
Yeah.
You don't remember any of it?
No, they said my blood alcohol level was probably about 0.40. So.
Okay. So you got to Toddy's house.
Yeah.
And you left your girlfriend in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And you went inside. What happened?
I come in and I forget who spoke first, but I said something about the riding lawnmower, and she said, "Earl, I'll get you a lawnmower." I just kind of looked at her like, man, shut up. And I don't know, she looked over at Mike, that was Mike Wells. He was sitting on a couch with her. And I guess be cold about it, to get her attention, I shot him.
Why'd you shoot him?
I don't know. Well, because when she was telling me, "I'll get you a lawnmower," I thought I saw her roll her eyes, at Mike, like, "Oh, man, that's crazy."
Did you know Mike?
Yeah.
How did you know him?
He was one of the first people I met here. He worked worked at the liquor store.
Yeah. What'd you think about him?
Oh, I liked him. He's a good dude.
Why'd you shoot him?
Because he was there.
What message were you trying to send in shooting him?
Well, I think I was showing her that I was serious, and you know,
What were you serious about?
about getting my shit. And besides showing her I was serious, I imagined the thought of, you know, not leaving anybody behind crossed my mind. That might have been foremost.
Why'd that cross your mind?
Well, I don't know, you people you leave behind, they tell on you, you know, because that's exactly what would have happened. It doesn't matter that it's all illegal, you know.
So, when you were going over there, you were planning on killing her.
I believe so.
So after you shot Mike, what happened?
Well, I kind of spaced out, you know, and Dottie took that window there of opportunity, and she ran out the front door, and I fired some shots in her direction, and I didn't know if I hit her or not, but she got into Angela's car and tried to back it up, and she got hung up on a guy wire for a telephone post.
What do you think we can learn from this?
Well, first thing is don't let your kids do drugs, you know. And there's got to be a psychological problem with me, more than one. But you know, I don't feel things like normal people do.
Describe that.
I don't know. I feel like my well, whatever it is that makes you think about, you know, not doing something, or it's screwed up. It may have never have worked, you know.
Do you think that what happened would have happened if you hadn't been doing drugs?
No, it wouldn't have.
I want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about?
Well, just one good thing about this whole thing that did come out of it is that my daughter and I recontacted, you know, made contact again, and our relationship is really good. She's pretty incredible. She's been NA for 10 years, been clean and sober for 10 years, and she just seems to be doing everything right. You know, I'm really proud of her.
Glad to hear that.
You know, my pen pals probably are tired of hearing me. They say they're not, but you know.
Do you love your daughter?
Yes.
Do you understand that the love you have for your daughter is the same love that Mike Wells' family had for him, or Joanne Barnes' family had for them?
I'm sure it is, yeah.
And I mean, you still don't feel any remorse over that?
For Mike and his family, I do.
What about Toddy?
No,
You don't feel any remorse?
no.
Why?
Because she knew what the deal was, you know. She'd been in this for as long as I had almost, and you know.
So you blame her for what happened?
Yeah. I know that's kind of asshole of me, but yeah, I do.
Do you feel remorse for Joanne Barnes?
Not so much,
Why?
because she's a cop and that she gets paid to carry a gun. I don't know.
Is there anything you want to say to the people of Denton County?
They've already come to the conclusions that, you know, they want, and probably most of them are right, whatever they think about me, you know.
What do you think they think?
I'm just a piece of shit.
Is that how you feel?
No.
Do you think that this is a just verdict that you're getting?
For the time and place, yeah, I guess so. I'm not going to say the death penalty is wrong because I really don't have the I'm not in a position to judge it because, you know, I'm one of them.
What's it like to know what your last day is going to be?
I think I'm pretty good with it. I've accepted it. Matter of fact, from the day after the shootout, when I woke up in the hospital, I knew I'd screwed up and I knew what was going to happen, and I pretty much accepted it then.
To wake up in the morning and realize what I had done, and with a clear mind and all my essential moral and ethical feelings intact at that moment, absolutely horrified that I was capable of doing something like that.
You really hadn't known that before?
Basically, I was a normal person. I wasn't some guy hanging out at bars or a bum, or I wasn't a pervert in the sense that, you know, people look at somebody and say, I know there's something wrong with him, and just tell. I mean, I was essentially a normal person. I had good friends. I led a normal life, except for this one small but very potent and very destructive segment of it that I kept very secret, very close to myself, and didn't let anybody know about it. And part of the shock and horror for my dear friends and family years ago when I was first arrested was that there was no clue. They looked at me and they looked at the all-American boy. And I mean, I wasn't perfect, but I want to be quite candid with you. I was okay. Okay, I was. The basic humanity and basic spirit that God gave me was intact, but it unfortunately became overwhelmed at times. And I think people need to recognize that it's not some kind of those of us who have been so much influenced by violence in the media, in particular pornographic violence, are not some kinds of inherent monsters. We are your sons and we are your husbands. And we grew up in regular families. And pornography can reach out and snatch a kid out of any house today. He snatched me out of my home. It snatched me out of my home 20, 30 years ago. And as diligent as my parents were, and they were diligent in protecting their children, and as good a Christian home as we had, and we had a wonderful Christian home, there is no protection against the kinds of influences that are loose in a society that tolerates.
You feel this really deeply, don't you? Ted, outside these walls right now, there are several hundred reporters that wanted to talk to you.
Yeah.
And you asked me to come here from California because you had something you wanted to say. This hour that we have together is not just an interview with a man who's scheduled to die tomorrow morning. I am here and you're here because of this message that you're talking about right here. You really feel that hardcore pornography and the doorway to it, softcore pornography, is doing untold damage to other people and causing other women to be abused and killed the way you did others.
Listen, I'm no social scientist, and I haven't done a survey. I mean, I don't pretend that I know what John Q. Citizen thinks about this. But I've lived in prison for a long time now. And I've met a lot of men who were motivated to commit violence just like me. And without exception, every one of them was deeply involved in pornography, without question, without exception, deeply influenced and consumed by an addiction to pornography. There's no question about it. The FBI's own study on serial homicide shows that the most common interest among serial killers is pornography.
That's true.
And it's real. It's true.
Ted, what would your life have been like without that influence? You can only speculate.
Yeah. Well, I know it would have been far better, not just for me, and it's, excuse me for being so self-centered here. It would have been a lot better for me and lots of other people. I know that. Lots of other innocent people, victims and families. It would have been a lot better. There's no question, but it would have been a fuller life. Certainly a life that would not have involved, I'm absolutely certain, would not have involved this kind of violence that I have committed.
I'm sure, Ted, if I were able to ask you the questions that are being asked out there, one of the most important as you come down to perhaps your final hours, are you thinking about all those victims out there and their families?
Well,
who are so wounded, years later, their lives have not returned to normal. They will never return to normal.
absolutely.
Are you carrying that load, that weight? Is the remorse there?
Yes, absolutely. In the past few days, myself and a number of investigators have been talking about unsolved cases, murders that I was involved in. And it's hard to talk about all these years later because it revives in me all those terrible feelings and those thoughts that I have steadfastly and diligently dealt with, I think successfully, with the love of God. And yet it's reopened that, and I felt the pain and I felt the horror again of all that. And I can only hope that those who I have harmed, those who I've caused so much grief, even if they don't believe my expression of sorrow and remorse, will believe what I'm saying now, that there is loose in their towns and their communities people like me today whose dangerous impulses are being fueled day in and day out by violence in the media in its various forms, particularly sexualized violence. And what scares me, and let's come into the present now, because what I'm talking about happened 20, 30 years ago, that is, in my formative stages. And what scares and appalls me, Dr. Dobson, is when I see what's on cable TV, some of the movies, some of the violence in the movies that come into homes today with stuff that they wouldn't show in X-rated adult theaters 30 years ago. This stuff...
The slasher movies that you're talking about.
That stuff is, I'm telling you, from personal experience, the most, that is graphic violence on screen, particularly as it gets into the home to children who may be unattended or unaware that they may be a Ted Bundy who has that vulnerability to that predisposition to be influenced by that kind of behavior, by that kind of movie, that kind of violence. There are kids sitting out there switching the TV dial around and come upon these movies late at night, or I don't know when they're on, but they're on and any kid can watch them. It's scary when I think what would have happened to me if I had seen. Scary enough. That I just ran into stuff outside the home, but to know that children are watching that kind of thing today, or can pick up their phone and dial away for it or send away for it. But I'll tell you, there are lots of other kids playing in streets around this country today who are going to be dead tomorrow and the next day and the next day and next month because other young people are reading the kinds of things and seeing the kinds of things that are available in the media today.
Ted, as you would imagine, there's tremendous cynicism about you on the outside, and I suppose for good reason. I'm not sure that there's anything that you could say that people would believe. Some people would believe.
Yeah.
And yet, you told me last night, and I've heard this through our mutual friend John Tanner, that you have accepted the forgiveness of Jesus Christ and are a follower and a believer in Him. Do you draw strength from that as you approach these final hours?
I do. I can't say that
It's going to be
being
easy.
in the valley of the shadow of death is something that I've become all that accustomed to, and that I'm strong and nothing's bothering me. Listen, it's no fun. It gets kind of lonely, and yet I have to remind myself that every one of us will go through this someday, in one way or another,
appointed unto man.
and countless millions who have walked this earth before us have. So this is just an experience which we all share.
Yeah.
What about the stress, Ed? Is it changing? Is it getting harder? Is it getting easier? What's it like?
Well, it's been getting harder.
Has it?
Yeah, since Friday night actually. But really, the last couple of days been real emotionally. I mean, not mentally draining, not emotionally draining. Just feel tired and everything like that. You know, exhausting.
Time going by quicker, slower,
Fast.
fast?
Mm-hmm.
Has that made you change your mind in any way?
No.
Has it once ever occurred to you
No,
to
it's
delay
always,
this?
it's always occurred, but
Why not fight for your life?
I just don't care to.
Are you sorry?
For the victim?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you? Anyone in particular?
Especially the one that was the 11-year-old girl way back in 1967. And even doing that 5-year sentence, it wasn't. That wasn't enough. But it affected me, just also because I not suffered, but I thought about it and condemned myself for many years. Because I can just imagine what her life might have been like.
What was the little girl's name again?
Riordan.
What about the religious aspect of it, Ed?
Like I told you before, that's kind of personal.
But it's there.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about this execution, are you afraid that there might be some pain involved? After all, we don't really know. This is the first time that the state has carried out this type of execution.
If I said if I wasn't concerned about that, I'd be lying. Because everybody wants to go the, easiest, most comfortable way.
Does that enter your mind, though, that you might?
It has entered my mind, yeah. They might, something might go wrong, or be some kind of suffering. But that has not altered my decision.
Do you deserve to die?
I can't answer that question.
No, it's the ultimate question. It is the question.
For what I did, yes, I think I deserve to die.